From here to Valhalla, I will always be on your side, Sigurd. Always.
Välkommen allesammans! Welcome back to the channel where we cover Assassin's Creed from a historically accurate point of view. And today I'm going to be speaking about the 5 most historically inaccurate things about the new Assassin's Creed Valhalla game coming out. But I want to be very clear, I hate people who complain about little inaccurate details about movies and games and stuff like that, and it just ruins it. There's no need for it. This game is amazing, 100%. Along with most other stuff about the Vikings. Yes, they may not have been 100% accurate, but that's okay. They have to add some things to make it more interesting. It's a game or a TV show. It's supposed to be entertaining. However, there are a few things with this game that are wrong with it that I just cannot let slide, so here are the 5 most historically inaccurate things about the game coming out so far. Number 1. There were no female Viking warriors. And then all the snowflakes are going to say, oh, but that's not true, Lagertha from Vikings. She was a shield maiden, and History Channel said this, and well, shut up a sec. That is the mainstream media, for some reason, trying to push their agenda about this, but when you speak to any scholar or university professor in the subject, they will all tell you that there is absolutely not enough evidence to confirm female Viking warriors. So I'll tell you quickly the evidence we do have. We have just one female grave out of tens and thousands of graves. Just one female was buried with a couple weapons. That's literally the only evidence we have, and anyone with half a brain will tell you that that's not enough evidence to prove a female warrior Viking culture. There is no other evidence than that, and that's the one that I keep going back to. However, we do actually have a few written sources that show women fighting. Yes, that's true. But it was always in defense of themselves or their family or their village. They were never going out to battle. Now, don't get me wrong, women in the Viking Age in Scandinavia were badass, and they defended themselves bravely, and women in Scandinavia were treated better, and they were more valued, and they were more free than anywhere else in the world at the time. But they did not accompany men into battle. They were just too precious and too valuable. And the men's main motivation for fighting was to protect their women. There are many sources for this. I actually did a really long video about that, looking at all those sources and breaking all of it down in my other channel, and that is in the link in the description. You can check that out if you like. Number 2, most historically inaccurate about this game is the combat. So, contrary to popular belief, the Vikings didn't just charge into combat with blind rage and hopes to die and go to Valhalla. Yes, they did that, but only sometimes. Most of the time, they were much more careful and calculated with their fighting. That's where this shield wall comes from. A Viking leader's or chieftain's biggest fear was losing men unnecessarily. The shield wall was a way to protect your men and fight as safely as possible. It was also a way to draw out the battle as long as you could, while waiting for reinforcements or something like that. So the Vikings, they would split out of this shield wall for certain reasons. So if they needed to get the fight over with really quickly, or if no reinforcements were coming, or if they knew they were going to die and they just wanted to go out in a blaze of glory, then yes, those are some situations where they would split up and fight ferociously with that rage that is so famous. But it was reserved for specific situations. Most of the time, the Vikings were careful and calculated in their fighting style. Number 3 most historically inaccurate thing, the locations. So here, Eivor is from Norway, along with the rest of the Raven clan, who we are playing as in this game. So Norwegians were not really the ones who came to England. They for sure did, but they didn't really settle in England in that big of numbers.
We cannot stay in Norway, not without fueling more war. So we push forward.
It was mostly the Danes who settled in England. Norwegians, we were more of the raiders and the explorers. The Norwegians settled in places like the Orkney Islands, Faroe Islands, Iceland, Greenland, and even North America, but they didn't settle in real big numbers in England. It was the Danes who settled England, and they even had complete control over England for quite some time, actually. The Swedes, they didn't do so much in the myths and the sagas. The Swedes were probably the most peaceful out of all the Scandinavian countries, and they just kind of, you know, we read about them kind of keeping to themselves and practicing their traditions and having festivals. And the Swedes just like to party and drink and have sex with each other. And not get anything done, like a bunch of hippies, just like Swedish people today. I'm just kidding. I love Swedish people. Norwegians, we just have a real friendly rivalry with the Swedes. We like to make jokes about each other, but deep down we love each other like brothers. But in the Viking Age, Norwegians were definitely the older and tougher brother. The Danish, they were more like the eldest child out of the three that was more mature and responsible and trying to make his two younger brothers grow up and get with the times. But if you go a few hundred years before the Viking Age, the Swedes were actually more badass than any of them in the very old myths that we have. So that's just a cool thing there.
If I wanted to hear you talk shit, I'd gouge out your tongue and shove it up your ass.
Number 4 misconception, the insults. So in this game and all other games really, we see a lot of really offensive trash talk, and this was not how the Vikings conducted themselves at all. They were actually very polite and proud people if you read the sagas. They were very courteous towards one another, and even a small little insult against someone else would be enough to start a fight to the death. The Vikings were actually very easily offended, funny enough. Yes, of course, you could always have a little guy talk and banter with close friends and talk a little trash and make jokes with your friends, but especially in their poetry battles, but you know, there was a line that you did not cross. You could trash talk about a man's, you know, his clothes or his boat or his horse, or tell some funny story about him, or make fun of how bad of a host he was.
Reeking of piss.
But in the sagas, the moment that someone attacked another man's character, or maybe his bravery, or his manliness, or sexuality, or his honor, it would be considered a great insult and would warrant a fight to the death. Misconception number 5, and this is my biggest pet peeve: the gods and the religion. And it is just misinformation that has been spread for 1,000 years now. The Norse pagans did not believe in some human-like gods that were lurking around the world or sitting up in the sky watching what we do. All the gods and characters in the myths represented different aspects of nature and spirit and the cosmos. The Vikings didn't believe in these crazy myths that defy the laws of physics and nature. Pretty much every story in our myths represents either a certain ritual that we did, or tells us a story of ancestors long ago, or most of them just represent some natural process that happens in nature. So when the Roman Church first came into Scandinavia, they didn't understand these things. They didn't understand these myths. And they basically outlawed the religion, the pagan religion, and killed anyone who didn't agree. And then, when they wrote out these myths from their perspective, they made our pagan ancestors sound like idiots that believed in all these crazy, unnatural things. And the problem is, every record that we have from medieval times about the Scandinavians was written by priests. So of course there is going to be some bias about our myths, and this misinformation has lasted 1,000 years. Most of you don't know this, but there are many people doing great work to decipher those lost meanings and translate them and uncover the myths and the lost beliefs. This is not just Norse myths, but all pagan religions all around the world. There are probably some people doing this with your native pagan religion and myths as well, wherever
Odin is with us!
you come from. So this is the main thing that I cover on my other channel. So if you are interested, you can check that out, and I explain about what all the gods mean and you know, all the theories and interpretations to uncover our lost beliefs. So that link is in the description below. That's it for this video. Vi ses nästa gång.